Welcome to Life Esteem, a program committed to delivering information that's important to you and your community.
Hello and welcome again to Life Esteem. It's always great to have you as a viewer. Hey, today we're going to talk with a good buddy, Russell Goodman, who is just a great guy, and he's a chaplain here in the Harrisburg area with Pinnacle Health. And we're so glad to have him on the show because he's doing great work. Russell, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Pleased to be here.
And I got to say, at the top of the show, Russell and I are the co-chairs of the Mayor's Interfaith Council, and it's a wonderful council that does gives advice, I guess you can say, to the mayor on a lot of different issues. And Russell's wife, who happens to be Joyce Davis, the mayor's director of communications, and of course she's the head of the World Affairs Council of Harrisburg. And what a gem she is, man! This lucky dog.
Busy lady.
Yeah. But anyhow, man, so glad to have you on the show because you do a lot of great work, and you're a busy guy.
I am fairly busy, keep fairly active. Part of what I'm doing, of course, as you mentioned, is working with the Pinnacle Health System as a chaplain assistant. That keeps you on your feet, well, quite literally, because, of course, when the volunteers go to the hospitals, they are literally walking from room to room, visiting with people for hours on end. So, yes, it's something that keeps you quite busy.
And I'm proud to say also that Russell was a student of the Life Esteem Chaplains Training Program under the tutelage of myself, as well as the Reverend Paul Derrickson, who really is one of the great chaplain professors, if you will, in this area and throughout the country. His wife was my trainer, and her name, of course, is the Reverend Barbara Derrickson. And we were just so lucky to have the wonderful skill of Paul Derrickson brought to our staff. But anyhow, Life Esteem, we do, thanks to this lady here, we do what's called Life Esteem Ministry, and we are able to train chaplains, and so we'll talk more about that as well. But talk about your role as a chaplain there at Pinnacle and the kind of things, what got you into chaplaincy, and what are the kind of things that you do on a daily basis?
You know, quite a number of years ago, I became involved through a ministry at a church that I belonged to at the time in visiting one of the local nursing homes. And after a while, after visiting with people there, ministering to folks, the residents at the nursing home, I began to realize that, well, I'm doing chaplaincy. I am meeting with these people, and I am tending to their spiritual needs. And it occurred to me that you need to formalize this in some kind of way. Well, I did that once I, not joining the staff of the Spring Creek Nursing Home, but taking over an existing ministry there where we had church services on a weekly basis. We formalized that. We created the Spring Creek Community Church there, so weekly church services with folks. And then I began to realize, you need to get even more training. And when I learned about the program through Life Esteem, I immediately signed up for that. And let me just say, I want this to sound like an advertisement, but that clearly has been one of the best programs that I have ever been a part of, because you begin to learn just what it is that a chaplain is all about, that your role is one of comfort and not conversion. And that's something that I think, that's a confusion that I think a lot of people who initially go into chaplaincy have. They think that what I'm there to do is to thump somebody with the Bible and to turn them into followers, in our case, of Jesus. And that really is not the role of the chaplain at all. Having completed that program, I then approached the chaplain at the time of the pastoral care program at Pinnacle and said, I'd like to be a part of this. Not to come on staff as a paid chaplain, but as a volunteer chaplain assistant. And that began my association with the Pinnacle Health System.
Well, let me ask you, Russell, you said that at another church you had been taking on this opportunity to go into Spring Creek, and then that just really kind of moved itself and then did direction for you. Now, you're now at a new church. And in that particular way, you just shared that you're going to be actually doing something on the 5th, Sunday of the month. How do you see that moving you forth in the work that you really seem to be inspired and really have called to do?
Chaplaincy is all about tending to the needs of the people with whom you come in contact. On the fifth Sunday of this month, I'll be preaching at Derry Street Church, Derry Street United Methodist Church. And there I will be talking about the Imagine No Malaria campaign that the Susquehanna Conference of the United Methodist Church has. It's an effort to raise $1 million to combat malaria in Africa. We'll also be talking about the mission of Mission Central, which is a program through the church to aid communities and individuals who have been beset by some type of disaster. I'll be talking about that because that, in my estimation, is something that falls directly in line with Matthew 25:35. You know, I was sick and you took care of me. I was hungry and you fed me. I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. I was homeless and you took me in. I was in prison and you visited me. All of these are things that I think the program that I'll be talking about on the fifth Sunday of this month, you know, really is all about. It's about helping those who are disadvantaged. But it's also, that's what it is that chaplaincy really is all about, is reaching out to those who are in need and then trying to help them through a very, very difficult time.
You know, one of the things we discovered, first chaplaincy seemed to be relegated to the hospitals,
Right.
you know, or the prisons, you know. But we're beginning to discover that chaplains, once you're a chaplain everywhere, right? So one of the fastest growing chaplaincy programs was truck stop ministry. I just noticed an article on airports now and have chaplains in the airports because so many people are hurried, and now with all of the unfortunate terrorism that's going on, there's a lot of anxiety and stuff that goes on. So you actually find chaplains just kind of wandering around, you know, very unassuming. But when they think that there's a need or, you know, there's an opportunity, they make themselves known and, you know, just kind of give some comfort and stuff. So chaplains are beginning to pop up a little bit everywhere. In fact, there's a wonderful group of men, 2 men in particular, that we've had on the show. They formed an organization called Someone to Tell It To. And they don't consider themselves chaplains, but they're both masters of divinity, trained, you know, former pastors. And they've just realized that a listening ear, you know, a godly presence is a powerful thing. And so what they do is they just simply make themselves available to people in need by simply saying, we're here, tell it to us. You know, I think that's powerful.
You know, I think everybody probably at some point or another has had an experience where they said to themselves, oh, someone mentioned something earlier. I think they may have been trying to tell me something. I think we need to always strive to be alive to the possibilities, which is to say, to listen very carefully to what it is that someone says to you. They may be asking for help.
That's right.
And as you say, you need to be that prepared, ready ear for somebody.
That's right.
They may need to talk, and you can be there to let them do that, to vent or whatever it may be. That's when you help somebody.
That's right. One of the tools that are used within the chaplaincy process, not just through Life Esteem, but, you know, the process itself, is called the verbatim. And I know that you were really into that process, and you know, talk a little bit about that, and what does the verbatim do in terms of a teaching tool?
You, pardon me, you need to listen very, very carefully to what it is that someone is saying. And so, of course, literally in the verbatim process, when you go through a course like that, you are reporting what it is that someone is saying and the questions that you are posing to them. But what's important about that, it's training you. It's training you to be able to elicit from them those things that they're trying to say.
Yeah.
You know, those things they're trying to get across, the pain or the hurt, the need, the want that they need to verbalize, that they need to get out. And it's training you to be able to enable them to do that.
What I like also about that is that it also helps you to hear yourself and to see how you interacted. And then, of course, your classmates are seeing things that maybe you didn't see, you know, or they're raising questions that maybe you hadn't raised, or, you know, whatever. So I just think it's a powerful tool. I remember at first when I was in, but the more I got into it, I really began to see that it revealed a lot about maybe the person you're working with, but probably even more so, who you are.
Well, that's
you
what I
know.
was going to make a comment about. I know some years ago you had talked about how it's really getting a perspective on yourself. And I know when you went through the first sessions that you really focus in on, because if I don't know who I am and how things affect and impact and me, then I won't have a clearer, better understanding what that looks like and means for others.
And especially because of this word called the hook. We talk about that quite a bit, how you can be really, really, caught up into something that someone said. It may be, the suicide that they were thinking of or that they've experienced through a family member, and that may have affected you in some way, and you don't hear anything else that person said because you're so stuck back on, wow, suicide. Or it could be someone's anything. Excuse me. So part of what it does is helps you to hear yourself, to know yourself, and to understand the quality of your interaction with the person. Because if you're not present and you're kind of going off on your own little agenda, it'll be seen in that verbatim if that verbatim was done very well. At least that's what I found.
Each of us is carrying our own story. We're carrying our own baggage.
That's
and
right.
you bring that to any encounter that you have. The thing is, when you are involved in chaplaincy, when you're speaking to somebody, it's not about you.
That's right.
And you need to rein in you.
Amen.
They may very well be talking about something to which you can relate, but that's not a springboard for you to start talking about you and your problems.
That's right.
So,
I appreciate that, because that's another thing I see happen so often. People use this opportunity sometimes self-therapy for themselves. And not recognize it's not about them, it's about really getting to know the other person in that process.
And a lot of times people don't know that they're doing it, or they don't mean to be, it's just that they're so hooked and they go right back into, man, yeah, that reminds, and they just go off into their own little thing. And so it happens. By the way, since we're talking about this, I do want to say to our viewing audience that, the Life Esteem Chaplain's training program through Pinnacle Health is starting up a new class in the fall of 2016. And so if you're interested and you think that you may be someone who could do this type of work, we would like you to contact the Office of Spiritual Care with Dr. Brenda Alton, Reverend Brenda Alton, and she is at Pinnacle Health as a director there, and she would love to hear from you, and applications will be made available. And the process is that you have to go through the volunteer office of Pinnacle Health. And so all the rules and regulations that would pertain to any volunteer, you would have to meet, such as your clearances and the orientation and all that. And then of course there's the training program that Russell went through, and I have been a part of, and it is to really fortify your learning and your skill set for the work that you are called to do. And you're called an assistant chaplain because we want to make sure people understand that you are a trained, professionally skilled chaplain. And that's why, even though you're volunteering, we want people to know that you're skilled and that you're good. And Russell happens to be one of the better ones. He really took this mantle. He not only went through the class, but he created that ministry and has been doing it for, you've been doing it for about, what, 2 years now?
I've been with Pinnacle going on, I suppose, 2.5 years.
Okay.
Or perhaps 3. It's kind of hard because I tend to confuse this with how long I've been working at Spring Creek, which is probably around 7 years now. So for quite a number of years, I've been involved in working with the residents or the patients at one place or another. And I would just say, anybody considering this, you will find, if you get involved in it, it is the most fulfilling work that one can imagine.
And I will say that, let's mention too, because some people say, well, I don't have that background, but you're a trained attorney, is that right?
Yes, I did practice law for a number of years. I've worn a number of hats over the years. Reinvented myself several times.
Is that right? Okay, because you're in the publishing industry and you do that kind of work.
That's true.
You were, what, a reporter?
I was a newspaper reporter in New Orleans long years ago. Yeah.
You and Joyce both?
Joyce as well. She was an editor as well as a reporter.
Okay.
At the morning newspaper. The morning newspaper was called the Times-Picayune in New Orleans. That's where we met.
And I could tell Joyce was an editor because I sent her an email once and she edited on me. And I thought to myself, I'm not sending her nothing. No, she's just intimidating me.
Don't feel bad. She does the same thing to me.
You can tell she's a writer, man. So anyhow, but this is good stuff. So let's talk about the other hat that you wear, and that is being the co-chair of the Mayor's Interfaith council, and you know, some people may or may not know that the council exists, but a lot of people did know about the council once we had a couple tragedies happen in the country, in particular the one down in Charleston, where the 9 or 10 people were massacred right in the church. And I remember the wonderful, what do you call them?
Display.
What were they? They were the memorial services, I guess you call them. We had one at the State Museum, and then you had one at the City Government Center. And they were both well received in terms of the outpouring of people that came. But that was sponsored by members of the Interfaith Council. So let's talk about the council itself.
Well, now that you mentioned that particular instance, when the Emmanuel AME Church was, when that tragedy took place there, the mayor was moved to have some type of public display of concern for the victims of that massacre. And of course, he came to the Interfaith Advisory Council and said, help us put on a program. And so a number of us from different faiths spoke at that ceremony. And that's been one of the functions of the Mayor's Interfaith Advisory Council since its inception, is to participate in programs like that. So for instance, on Veterans Day or other occasions like that, one of the members of the council may be asked to come and to make introductory remarks or to offer an invocation, to give an opening prayer, or to otherwise participate, you know, in that ceremony. But one of the biggest reasons, or one of the real drivers behind the establishment of the Interfaith Advisory Council was the mayor's desire to hear from a particular group, a particular community, about concerns that they were hearing from their parishioners. The mayor, as you might imagine, meets with any number of people, hears from any number of groups, the business community, you know, for instance, about what their concerns are, what they would like to see happen. That doesn't mean he necessarily meets personally with these groups or with certain individuals. He may meet or hear from their representatives. But he wants input on a number of areas, and of course he wanted that from the spiritual community. I phrase it that way as opposed to the clergy, because a number of the members of the Mayor's Interfaith Advisory Council are not ordained or licensed, but they are active in spiritual work in the community. The mayor, when he first took office, had 5 core areas that he was principally concerned with. Economic development in the city of Harrisburg, of course, being one of them. Crime and safety, obviously a great concern to the mayor and to anybody in public life in the city of Harrisburg. Blight and beautification, as you can imagine, that is a very, very serious area that needs to be addressed.
Absolutely.
Arts, culture, and tourism. How is it that we can bring, you know, folks you know, into the city to enjoy the many fine things that we have here? How can we engage them? How can we encourage them? Youth and education, clearly very important areas. So these were core areas he wanted to focus on, and he wanted to hear the spiritual community's views on this. How might they advise him? And so when the council meets, a representative or representatives of the mayor are there. Joyce is always there, but other persons in the administration may come as well. Voice programs and initiatives that the mayor's office has, and then ask for input from the Mayor's Interfaith Advisory Council. So that's largely what we are all about.
Absolutely. And it's a broad group of people who really bring in a great deal of perspectives that are needed, and that oftentimes don't find themselves in the same room. So it's a good thing to have.
There's quite a bit of diversity
Yes.
in regard to, as I notice and see, some of the communication back and forth and the representation. How many, can you say, either one of you, about how many members currently do you have that participate within the interfaith?
There are probably around 30
About 30?
30 members that
Okay.
are participating. You know, you talk about the diversity. So, I'm going to get in trouble here because once you start mentioning the different groups, you're always going to leave
That's right.
some out. But it is a widespread group. You know, we have members from the Hindu community and from the Baha'i, from the Jewish community,
Muslim.
2 or 3 different groups in the Muslim community. Quite a number of Christian groups are represented in there as well, Sikh community. So yes, we seek to have a wide array of folks and to see what it is that they are hearing from their constituents, if you will, from their parishioners.
One of the things coming up in the fall will be the 9/11 commemorative service. I want to talk about that a little bit. I know you've worked on that before.
Behzad Zandieh of the Baha'i community and I were co-chairs last year of the 9/11 commemoration program. Now this is something that's done in connection with the Interfaith Alliance of Pennsylvania, but the Mayor's Interfaith Advisory Council, working with them, put on a program. Last year we held it at Goodman Memorial Baptist Church, and a representative of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community came and spoke, and it was an incredibly moving speech that he gave. But imagine this, if you will. We're meeting in a Baptist church. The opening comments were given by Rabbi Ron Muroff of Hissakamuna congregation here in town. Here we are hearing from this Muslim representative, and of course here we were hearing the magnificent Goodman choir. So we had this real panoply of different faiths represented there. It was a marvelous time.
Fantastic.
I'm not active in the program this year, but I have every faith that this is going to be a wonderful program, and I urge everybody in the community to turn out and to attend it.
Absolutely, yeah. And there was also another wonderful program. I wasn't able to take part of it because I was, I think, performing a wedding that day or something. But literally, the churches got together and they walked. And they stopped at various churches along the way.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember the name of that? And
Harmony Walk.
Harmony Walk. Okay.
Harmony Walk was a delightful program where, yes, people were urged to come together. We met at Wesleyan AME, and after hearing from Reverend Dixon, we then marched, if you will, from church to church and synagogue to synagogue, and ultimately wound up at the Hadi Mosque, the Ahmadiyya Muslim Community Mosque, there on Division Street. But at each stop, we heard from the rabbi or the other spiritual leader of whatever that congregation was about the beauty of having interfaith efforts like this, of people coming together and exulting in their difference. The difference is something that you celebrate. It is not something that you rue. It's not something that you're afraid of.
That's right.
It's something that you want to grab a hold of and celebrate. It's
Fantastic.
a wonderful thing. It's what makes us strong.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, I agree
yeah.
wholeheartedly. Now, it was interesting, Nate had alluded to just not too long ago, you wear these various many hats, okay, that you've been involved with over the years. Now, you and your lovely wife also spent some time in Prague.
4 years we lived in Prague, yes.
Okay.
4 years.
4
Okay.
years,
I didn't realize it
okay.
was 4. Okay.
And tell us a little bit about that experience. What was that for you in regard to?
Well, Joyce was offered a position working with Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty. And that was a program where, because of her background in National Public Radio, and her background in the newspaper business, et cetera, and because of her expertise in matters Islamic, I mean, she has written a couple of books on political Islam, and so she's somewhat the expert on that. She was asked to take over the services that Radio Free Europe had, broadcasting to Iraq, Iran, and all of the countries of Central Asia. So that's what brought us to Prague, because the broadcasting is done from that city.
Oh, okay.
So that's why we were there. and we stayed 4 years, and then we decided, well, it was time to come back home. Our son was getting ready to start high school, and we figured it was a good thing to get him back in touch with his American roots.
Right. And talk about that wonderful son of yours, all right? He has aspired to quite a political, career.
Well, yes, he certainly has.
Yes.
He's at the moment, he is on the Susquehanna Township School Board, but he is got his sights on 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
Yeah, I know he does.
I know he does.
No question about it. And he's a go-getter, too, and a worker. That's the thing I like about Cole.
He's a very hard working, disciplined guy. Yes.
Yes, he is. That's
Definitely.
One of the things I like about him is that at his age, he's just turned 22, he has a passion. He knows what he wants to do in life. And I got to tell you, when I was that age, I didn't have that focus and direction, and that's often the case. And that's not a bad thing, but it is a wonderful thing to be able to see someone at that age really organized, know what it is they want to do, and work toward achieving it.
Yeah, but look who you had as role models. Come on, man. You guys are fantastic. And I can't see him doing anything other than what he's doing, because you just provide him with so many great opportunities. And in fact, he went back to Prague, I believe, last year? Kind of went on his own and just kind of...
Yeah, last summer he was there studying. He was studying a program there at Charles University.
That's good stuff. That's good stuff. Well, I know we're going to run out of time. We're down to about almost 2 minutes, I guess. And so, again, this wonderful program that you have, that you're involved in over there at Spring Creek, that wonderful ministry, keep it going. We need, you and the kind of work you're doing. And for those persons who are interested in being a chaplain, again, contact Pinnacle Health. The Reverend Dr. Brenda Alton, the Office of Spiritual Care, and she can tell you all about how to apply to the Life Esteem Chaplains training program. And Russell, you're just doing great work. I'm looking forward to your sermon there on the 5th Sunday in July. Is that what you told us?
That's right, at Dairy Street, United Methodist Church, there at 15th and Dairy.
1508
10
Dairy
o'clock,
Street.
everybody is welcome.
Oh yeah, everyone's welcome, and it's always a great time. And by the way, the pastor there is none other than Matt Granderson, the Reverend Pastor Matt Granderson, who everybody said, oh, you still on the St. Louis? Yeah, he did. Now he's the pastor of Dairy Street United Methodist Church.
He refers to himself as a former saloon keeper, but he's a wonderful, wonderful pastor.
Oh man, is he not? Yes, he is. So hats off to him and all he does. And also in that church, you have some wonderful ministries with Reverend Romaine, right? They have the Crossroads Baptist Church, and hats off to his congregation. They do a tremendous work. And then you have the food banks and this and that. Just so many good things going on. Well, we ran out of time. We're down to 1 minute, but I want to thank Russell Goodman for coming on, chaplain. And we appreciate all the work that you're doing. And then best to your wife and your son, and also best to you. We hope that you will continue to support, this program called Life Esteem. We try to bring you on great people doing great things, and we believe that there's a lot of great people in the central Pennsylvania area doing a lot of great things, and you can be one of them. So get off that couch, get out there and get involved. Hey, we're going to see you next time here on Life Esteem. Have a blessed day. Goodbye. Good stuff, man. Good stuff.